I want you to just imagine waking up on what is arguably supposed to be the most celebratory day of your entire year.
Right.
You open your eyes, and it's your wedding anniversary. The person you love most in the world is sleeping right next to you. But, beyond just being your anniversary, it is also a day that's completely woven into your family's history because it's your father's birthday, too.
Oh, wow. Yeah. That's a huge day.
Exactly. So you have this beautiful morning ritual, like perfectly planned out. You're going to make that phone call. You're going to hear his voice. You're going to say happy birthday, and he is going to say happy anniversary right back.
It's an anchor.
It is. It's this anchor in your life, a sacred day. And then before 7 in the morning, before you can even, reach for your phone, there is a knock at your front door.
Just out of nowhere.
Right out of nowhere. And before the sound of that knock even finishes echoing through your apartment, you hear a voice from the hallway yell, "Tear it down."
Jesus. It is the kind of jarring, violent contrast that the human brain actually struggles to process in real time.
Yeah.
You're transitioning from the absolute vulnerability and safety of deep sleep on a day defined by love and family straight into a literal tactical nightmare.
8 impacts from a heavy battering ram. The front door is literally torn off its hinges, just like splintering into the hallway.
Total destruction.
And before you can even figure out if you're having a nightmare, you see the living room wall painted with the green laser sights of multiple assault rifles.
Right.
Now, this isn't, it's not a movie script. This is the exact scene we're exploring today in our deep dive into a sprawling, meticulously documented investigation known as the Oki Doke.
And, our mission today is very specific.
Yeah, lay it out for them.
We are undertaking an impartial, completely forensic examination of the official paper trail behind the events detailed in this source material. And when I say source material, I mean we're talking about a massive stack of declassified court documents, sworn affidavits, leaked audio transcripts, and official investigative reports.
Right. And that word forensic is just so vital here. We have to set the ground rules for you right now as you're listening, because the story you're about to hear is going to sound, honestly, deeply unbelievable at times.
Oh, absolutely. The contradictions alone are going to make you question how the entire system functions.
Yeah. But everything we are going to tell you, everything we found and everything we believe, is rooted strictly in that verified record.
Right.
We are not dealing in rumors here. We are dealing in what the paperwork actually proves. Nothing you're about to hear is exaggerated.
Not even a little bit. We are not dramatizing this for effect. We don't have to. The documents themselves, like the actual sworn paperwork filed in the justice system, are infinitely more shocking than any fiction some Hollywood screenwriter could invent.
Yeah, you couldn't write this. And, we also need to emphasize that the legal battles surrounding this story are not historical footnotes.
No, they're active.
Right. They are ongoing in real courtrooms right now as you are listening to this. So as we walk through this timeline, I really want you to resist that natural human instinct to think, well, there must be a spin on this. It can't really be this bad.
Because it is.
Ah.
We are sticking exclusively to what the legal and investigative paper trail shows, regardless of how uncomfortable it makes the narrative.
Which brings us to the title of our source material, the Oki Doke.
Yeah.
Now, I grew up hearing that phrase, on the playground and in barbershops, but for anyone who hasn't, how do we define the theme of this deep dive?
Right. So the Oki Doke is, at its core, the trick. It is the sleight of hand.
Okay.
It's that deliberate, calculated move where someone hands you a very specific, carefully constructed version of events, and they do it for one reason, so you will accept it and stop looking for the real story.
Wow.
It's the illusion of transparency, designed specifically to hide the truth.
And that leads us to the overarching question for this entire deep dive. The question I really want you to keep in the back of your mind through every single twist, turn, and legal contradiction we are about to cover.
And that question is, who played whom?
Exactly. Okay, let's unpack this, starting with the morning that changed everything.
So Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018. That is the date where the narrative fractures permanently.
Yeah.
And to truly understand the weight of that fracture, we have to look at the ritual versus the reality of that specific morning.
Right, because Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018, was the wedding anniversary of Jonathan T. Jackson, also known as JT Jackson. And for the rest of our time today, we're just going to refer to him as JT.
Right.
Now, that date wasn't just like pulled out of a hat by a wedding planner.
No, not at all. JT's wife specifically chose January 23rd for their wedding because of her deep affection for her father-in-law.
Oh.
She actively wanted to share space with his birthday. When you think about the psychology of that, she wanted their most sacred, intimate day as a couple to be permanently intertwined with the celebration of his life.
That's beautiful.
It is. It's a profound gesture of family unity.
So the morning ritual is sacred. Wake up, call JT's father in St. Louis, exchange the birthday and anniversary wishes.
Right.
You have a son and a daughter connected to a father across the country by this one perfectly shared date on the calendar. But on January 23rd, 2018, that morning call just never happened.
Because the breach happened first. The timeline, according to the reporting and the sworn accounts in the record, is terrifyingly swift.
Yeah, walk us through it.
It's before 7 in the morning. The knock is immediately followed by the deployment of the battering ram. 8 strikes to completely breach a reinforced residential door.
Just 8 huge hits.
Right. When they yell, tear it down, they're executing what law enforcement calls a dynamic entry.
Wait, I have to pause you there. Because when you say dynamic entry, you mean they aren't just, unlocking the door with a master key and announcing themselves with a badge, right?
No, not at all.
We are talking about overwhelming speed and force designed to shock the occupants into total submission.
Precisely. The dynamic entry is a tactical maneuver, typically reserved for situations where there is an immediate catastrophic threat, like a hostage situation, an active shooter, or a location where highly dangerous suspects are known to be heavily armed and actively destroying evidence.
Okay.
The entire purpose of a dynamic entry is violence of action. It is designed to disorient the targets so completely that they cannot form a single cognitive thought, let alone resist.
And we are talking about more than 10 armed officers pouring into an apartment space, assault rifles drawn,
Right.
green laser sights slanting and painting the living room walls. Now, JT and his wife were not in the living room. They were asleep in a separate bedroom. And what is so chilling about this detainment is that the officers don't rush the bedroom. They hold their position in the hallway, and they use voice commands.
Which is a very specific, highly calculated tactical choice. By staying outside the room and using voice commands, they are forcing the occupants to navigate a terrifying threshold entirely blindly.
The procedure is humiliating. JT is ordered out of the room first. He is told to put his hands up, turn around, and walk backwards toward the voices of the officers.
Imagine that.
He has to walk backwards into a space occupied by armed strangers in his own home. He is detained, and then his wife is given the exact same instructions. Hands up, turn around, walk backwards. She's detained.
Let's really break down the psychology of that for a second.
Yeah, please do.
When you are forced to walk backwards toward an unknown threat, you are stripped of your primary sensory defense, your sight.
Right.
You cannot see the people aiming weapons at you.
Yeah.
You cannot read their body language to gauge if they are calm or panicked. You cannot see if their fingers are on the triggers.
That is terrifying.
You are entirely at the mercy of their commands, moving blindly into a hostile space that, until 5 minutes ago, was your most private sanctuary.
I look at this and I literally cannot help but compare it to a hostile military extraction in an active war zone.
Exactly.
This is not a standard procedure for executing a search warrant on a nonviolent individual suspected of a white-collar crime. I mean, imagine the sheer terror of walking backwards toward assault rifles in your own hallway.
Yeah.
It's not just an invasion of your physical space, it's an absolute erasure of your safety. Your home is suddenly a combat zone and you are the prisoner of war.
And that erasure is permanent.
Yeah.
You do not unlive that morning. You don't ever look at your front door the same way again.
No, how could you?
And the aftermath of the detainment compounds that trauma significantly. After being held at gunpoint inside their own home, JT and his wife are paraded downstairs.
Right.
Now remember, they live in an apartment building, which means they are walked out into the central courtyard, completely detained, in full view of all their neighbors heading out for their morning commutes.
The ultimate public humiliation. Your reputation in your community is being destroyed in real time. And while they are outside being stared at, the officers are inside seizing everything.
Computers, phones.
Hard drives, all his digital property. And then comes the detail that just makes the whole thing feel so incredibly surreal. The officers finish up, they pack up the seized property, and they leave.
Yeah.
They leave without making a single arrest.
They drop a tactical bomb on this man's life, tear his sanctuary to shreds, humiliate him and his wife publicly, seize the tools of his livelihood, and then just pack up and drive away.
It makes no sense.
And the immediate professional fallout for JT is absolute. The record shows that prior to that Tuesday morning, JT was a highly successful, consistently working actor. He had 200 professional acting credits to his name.
Wow.
We are talking about an average of 13 jobs a year for 15 straight years.
Let's pause here. If you aren't in the entertainment industry, 200 professional acting credits might just sound like a solid number. But in Hollywood, that is monumental.
Unheard of for most.
Exactly. 15 straight years of consistent, booked work in an industry that famously rejects 99% of the people who try it. Most actors consider booking 1 or 2 jobs a year a massive success. JT was booking 13. He was an institution.
He really was.
But after January 23rd, 2018, 0. His credits went from 200 to 0 overnight. When that kind of police activity is attached to your name in Hollywood, the phone simply stops ringing.
Right.
So, to really grasp the magnitude of what was destroyed in that apartment that morning, we have to understand the architecture of the dream that built it. We have to answer the question, who is JT?
And when you look into his background, you see a man defined by intense, deliberate strategy, not just raw ambition. JT was born in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
From a very young age, he possessed this rare, effortless, comedic talent. He was the guy who could change the entire molecular energy of a room just by walking into it. But having world-class talent in St. Louis presents a massive geographical and structural problem.
Right, because St. Louis has no entertainment industry. None. And California is astronomically expensive.
Exactly.
If you are a kid in Missouri with no connections, no family in Los Angeles, and no massive trust fund, Hollywood might as well be on Mars. The barrier to entry is entirely financial.
Yeah.
Most people hit that wall and they just fold. They get a local job, they give up, and they spend the rest of their lives wondering, what if? But JT didn't do that. He looked at the board and he formulated a strategic plan. He joined the United States Navy right out of high school.
It was an 8-year commitment. 4 active, 4 reserve.
Okay.
This wasn't a distraction from his dream. This was the financial and logistical engine that was going to fund it. He went in as an information systems technician, training at Great Lakes in Chicago.
Right.
And the investigative notes show his mindset perfectly. During this period, he didn't just want to pass basic training and do his time. He pushed aggressively for the absolute top spot in his class.
He ended up finishing 2nd overall, which is still incredibly impressive, and he used the leverage of that high-class rank to choose his next station. And where does he pick?
San Diego.
San Diego. Just 2 hours down the coast from Hollywood. It was the closest military base to the entertainment capital of the world that he could possibly secure.
He is positioning himself on the chessboard. He is 2 hours away from his dream with a steady military paycheck keeping him afloat.
Smart.
But then we hit the first major setback. Right in the middle of his enlistment, with 0 warning and 0 room for negotiation, his orders are abruptly changed. The Navy relocates his command to Washington State.
Oh, man.
Suddenly, he is thousands of miles away from Los Angeles again.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Most people would see that unexpected transfer as the universe saying, give up. It's not meant to be. I mean, you fought so hard, you studied so relentlessly to get 2 hours away, and now you were shipped to the damp Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, it's brutal.
It is a crushing blow. So what does JT do? Does he quit?
He adapts immediately. Instead of wallowing in the setback, he uses his time in Washington State to aggressively build his stage time.
Oh, nice.
He finds every open mic, every small comedy club in the region. He is performing, honing his comedic timing, working on his craft relentlessly, so that when he eventually makes the permanent move to Los Angeles, he isn't arriving as an amateur, he is arriving with reps.
Right.
And he was so dedicated to this long-term vision that when his enlistment was finally up, the Navy offered him an immediate $60,000 to re-enlist for 5 more years.
$60,000 in guaranteed cash right in front of his face at a time when he had no guaranteed income waiting for him in the civilian world.
Exactly.
And he turns it down flat because he knows the window to chase this dream is open right now. And if he signs those next 5 years away, the dream might close forever.
Yeah, he takes the leap.
So he gets out of the Navy, and this is where the real hustle begins. The grueling post-military grind. He moves to Lancaster, California, which is about an hour and 10 minutes outside of Hollywood.
And we really need to emphasize what that hour and 10 minutes actually means.
Yeah, break it down.
He is making that drive every single day. Open mics, improv classes, acting workshops. He is doing everything to break in.
I don't think people realize how punishing a commute from Lancaster to Hollywood actually is. That's not just an hour and 10 minutes of smooth highway driving.
No, it's terrible traffic.
That's driving from the high desert into the most congested traffic grid in North America. You are bleeding gas money you don't have to go to auditions where you will be rejected 99% of the time.
Exactly. It is a war of attrition. And the record highlights the ultimate sacrifice he made during this period to survive that war.
What was it?
When he was too exhausted to safely make that drive back to Lancaster in the middle of the night after a leaked comedy set, JT would sleep in his car in Hollywood parking lots.
I really want you to visualize that. A military veteran, a guy who served his country, grinding it out in auditions all day and open mics all night, curling up in the driver's seat of his car in a random, dimly lit parking lot, just so he could wake up and do it all over again the next day.
Yeah.
This is the absolute antithesis of the overnight success story. This is sheer, unadulterated willpower.
And that willpower finally pays off. In 2003, JT books the Bacardi Cola campaign.
Huge.
It is a massive, life-altering breakthrough. He is handed a $50,000 check, and suddenly his face is 50 feet high on a billboard on Sunset Boulevard in Los Angeles and on another massive billboard in New York City.
From sleeping in a car in a parking lot to staring down at Sunset Boulevard from a billboard, it is an incredible triumph.
It really is.
And this launched a legendary run in the commercial acting world. It is why his peers in the industry gave him a very specific moniker. They called him the Commercial King.
The Commercial King. That title establishes something vital about JT's character for our investigation.
He was a man who built his life and his sanctuary through intense, calculated, and relentless effort. He wasn't relying on luck. He built a rock-solid career, block by block, credit by credit. He earned every single inch of his success.
So we have established exactly who JT is and how unbelievably hard he worked for the life that was violently interrupted on January 23rd, 2018.
Yes.
But to understand why his door was torn down, to understand the machinery that was set in motion against him, we have to look at another foundational pillar of his life during all those years of hustling. We have to look at his friendship with Kevin Hart.
This is a crucial element of the official record. JT and Kevin Hart were not just casual Hollywood acquaintances who networked at industry parties.
No.
They were inseparable best friends long before Kevin Hart was a global superstar. They were in the trenches together before the massive arena tours, before the blockbuster films, before the private jets.
When you build a career that meticulously sleeping in cars, grinding for 15 straight years, your inner circle stays incredibly small. You only trust the people who are with you in the dirt. And for JT, that person was Kevin Hart. They were so close that during Kevin Hart's divorce from his first wife, JT was the one who was there for him.
Yeah, they lived together.
The record shows they even lived together during that extremely difficult personal period. They were brothers by choice. But in August 2017, that bond and Kevin Hart's entire empire collided with a massive, unprecedented crisis.
The timeline takes us to Las Vegas, August 2017. Kevin Hart is in Las Vegas, and a private, intimate encounter with a woman named Montia Sabag is secretly recorded on video.
And when whispers of this video start to surface, the stakes are absolutely apocalyptic.
They really are.
You have to remember the specifics of Kevin Hart's brand at this time. He is positioned globally as the ultimate devoted family man. He is universally known as the hardest working person in comedy. He is beloved. If this tape gets out, his marriage is in severe jeopardy. His massive multi-million-dollar corporate business deals are at risk of being voided due to immorality clauses. And the carefully constructed image he has cultivated for over a decade could just evaporate overnight.
It is an existential threat to an empire. Hundreds of millions of dollars are suddenly in the balance.
Yeah.
And when a threat of that magnitude appears, when the machinery of fame is threatened, narratives begin to take shape very quickly.
Yeah.
Now, to maintain our strict impartiality and rely only on the record, we have to introduce a very provocative detail that entered the public sphere regarding this tape.
Okay.
Makisha Shakes, who was Kevin Hart's personal assistant at the time, later gave an extensive interview on Tasha K's show.
I want to be very careful here, but what did she actually claim in that interview?
Makisha Shakes publicly claimed that Kevin Hart allegedly filmed the beginning of that video himself using his own phone. Now, I want to frame this explicitly for you, the listener. This is her public account. It is what she stated in an online interview. This specific claim has not been established as fact in sworn court testimony.
Right.
We are reporting exactly what the public record shows, she said, without taking sides or endorsing the viewpoint.
Yeah.
We are simply conveying the ideas that exist in the original source material.
Right. I have to pause you there. Because if Kevin Hart's own assistant is claiming he set up the camera himself, that completely flips the script.
It completely changes the dynamic.
But how much weight can we actually give a public interview compared to sworn testimony? We can't verify her claim today, but what we can verify is that if that assistant's claim holds any weight in the court of public opinion, then hypothetically you would need a massive fire break.
Oh, absolutely.
If you are a global superstar whose entire empire, his marriage, his money, his legacy, is suddenly threatened by a tape, you need to shift the narrative. You need to transition from being the architect of a scandal to being the victim of a crime.
That's the playbook.
And to do that, to create that firebreak, you need an official paper trail. Someone or something is going to take the fall. So let's look at whether the legal paper trail supports that theory.
That brings us directly to the core of this investigation, the architecture of the legal document that resulted in the violent raid on JT's home.
Search warrant. The literal piece of paper that authorized more than 10 armed officers to shatter the peace of a wedding anniversary. Now, for the listener, let's break down the actual mechanics of a search warrant, because on television, a search warrant is just a piece of paper a detective aggressively waves in the air at a suspect. But legally, what is actually happening in that room with the judge, it carries immense constitutional weight.
Exactly. The Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution protects citizens from unreasonable searches and seizures.
Right.
To pierce that protection, law enforcement cannot just act on a hunch or a rumor. It requires what the law calls an ex parte proceeding. There's Latin for from one party. This is crucial for you to understand. When an investigator goes to a judge for a warrant, the suspect is not in the room. The defense attorney is not in the room.
So the judge is basically flying blind. They only hear one side of the story.
Entirely. The judge relies solely on the affidavit presented by the investigator.
Wow.
The investigator has to write down specifically what they believe is true. They have to detail the evidence they claim supports that belief, and then they have to swear to its accuracy under penalty of perjury.
So it's all based on trust.
Right. The judge relies on the absolute, unimpeachable candor of that investigator to authorize the raid. If the investigator lies or omits crucial facts, the entire constitutional safeguard collapses.
Yeah.
In this specific case, the investigator drafting the affidavit was Robin Letourneau of the Los Angeles District Attorney's Cybercrime Division.
Robin Letourneau. She's the one writing the narrative. She is the one telling the judge the story of what happened. And in her affidavit, she lays out a very specific, highly alarming claim.
She does.
She states in writing, under oath, that a $5 million demand was sent directly to Kevin Hart by email. And she provides a very tight, specific time frame for this alleged extortion attempt. She swears it happened between August 25th and August 30th, 2017.
A $5 million extortion demand sent directly to the victim.
Right.
On paper, it sounds like a clear, severe felony that demands immediate police intervention. It paints a picture of a celebrity under direct, aggressive siege.
Absolutely.
But what's fascinating here is what we found when we forensically cross-referenced Letourneau's sworn affidavit with the actual investigative files she possessed in her own office. There was a massive, shocking contradiction.
A contradiction that changes the entire complexion of this case. Because the investigative files reveal that Robin Letourneau had a recorded phone call on September 17th, 2017. And who is she on the phone with? Kevin Hart's own attorney, Andrew Breckler.
Yes. On September 17th, months before she ever drafted the warrant to raid JT's home, Letourneau is speaking directly with Andrew Breckler on a recorded line.
Okay.
And in that recording, Breckler explicitly, unequivocally confirms to her that nobody had contacted Kevin Hart directly. The communication, the contact, actually went to a gossip website called Media Takeout.
I really need you to let that sink in for a second.
It's wild.
The victim's own attorney tells the lead investigator on audio tape that Kevin Hart was never the target of a direct demand during that time period. The narrative of an email being sent directly to Kevin Hart demanding $5 million between August 25th and August 30th was definitively legally shot down by his own legal representation.
And yet, despite possessing that audio recording, despite hearing those exact words directly from Andrew Breckler in September, Robin Letourneau drafts a search warrant affidavit months later that claims the exact opposite.
It's baffling.
The document used to authorize a violent, traumatic raid on a private citizen's home contained claims that were directly contradicted by the investigator's own audio recordings sitting in her own files.
I want to make sure I understand this because it sounds crazy. The document that sent armed officers to JT's home described something the investigator's own recorded conversations already showed was not true.
Yes.
It is breathtaking. It's like a doctor ordering an MRI, getting the scan back showing a perfectly healthy patient, and then walking into the operating room to amputate the leg anyway.
That's a great analogy.
The data was literally in their hands. You have a judge reading this affidavit, trusting the sworn word of a law enforcement officer, totally unaware that in a file somewhere nearby, there is an audio tape proving the core premise of the extortion demand is false.
It represents a catastrophic breakdown in the integrity of the judicial process. A search warrant is supposed to be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, precisely because the consequences of executing it are so severe.
Right.
You are stripping away a citizen's sense of safety, their privacy, and in this case, their entire livelihood, based on a sworn statement. If that statement is contradicted by the state's own evidence, the system has failed.
Which brings us back to the human cost of all of this. Because when we talk about affidavits and ex parte proceedings and digital files, it is very easy to get lost in the legal jargon and the hypocrisy of the paperwork.
Yeah, you lose sight of the people.
We have to remember the human beings at the center of January 23rd. We have to remember that missed phone call between a son and his father.
The human element is the tragic coda to this whole timeline. The raid shattered the tradition of that shared birthday and anniversary. The trauma of that morning permanently altered their family dynamic.
It's just awful.
But the tragedy didn't stop there. According to JT's own public Instagram post, his father passed away on September 18th, 2023. That is a full 5 years after the raid on his son's apartment.
5 years of living under a cloud of suspicion. 5 years of his son going from 200 professional acting credits to 0. His father died, never getting to see his son's case resolved.
I never got closure.
He never got to see JT's name cleared or the truth of that morning fully brought to light in a court of law. It is just incredibly heartbreaking. It is a theft of time and peace that you can never refund to a family.
It is the ultimate collateral damage of a system that acted on flawed paperwork. And what we have covered today, this massive contradiction regarding the direct demand, is only the beginning of the discrepancies found in the investigative file.
Really? There's more.
Oh, yeah. The paper trail gets even more complicated and, frankly, more baffling when we look at how the investigators handled the digital evidence.
Oh, absolutely. This is where we start dropping the breadcrumbs for what the investigation uncovers next, because the timeline of the evidence they collected makes the raid on JT's home look even more unjustifiable. Let's look at September 16th, 2017.
On September 16th, 2017, Kevin Hart posts a highly publicized apology video to his family on his Instagram account. He is trying to get ahead of the story, speaking directly to his millions of followers.
Okay.
Now, immediately following that post, 2 public comments appear under that video that catch the attention of the investigators.
Right. And to track down exactly who left those comments, the investigators don't just guess. They issue legal requests to Meta, the parent company of Instagram.
Yep.
And in October 2017, Instagram complies. They send the investigators a massive document dump, 651 pages of Instagram business records.
And we need to clarify what those records actually are.
Right.
When law enforcement serves a warrant to Instagram, they don't just get a printout of the user's profile picture.
No.
They get the digital DNA of the account. They get IP addresses, device IDs, login timestamps, and geolocation data. It is definitive proof explicitly showing exactly who left those comments, from what device, and where they were located.
So this isn't circumstantial. This is digital forensics. And the investigators received all 651 pages of this definitive digital evidence in October 2017.
Yes. And the critical piece of information, the key that unlocks the absolute origin of those comments, is located specifically on page 283 of those records.
Yeah. So let's look at the timeline here, because it is damning. The investigators are sitting on all of this proof. They have the audio recording from Andrew Brettler from September saying there was no direct extortion demand.
Right.
They have 651 pages of Instagram records sitting on their desk in October 2017, with page 283 holding the digital DNA. They have all the pieces of the puzzle. They know what the data says.
They do.
Yet 3 months later, in late January 2018, they still write a fundamentally flawed document, present it to a judge, and go tear JT's front door off its hinges.
The timeline discrepancy is glaring. When law enforcement possesses exculpatory evidence, which is evidence that proves someone is innocent or contradicts the main theory of the crime for 3 months, the decision to execute a high-risk, traumatic raid based on a contradicted narrative is profoundly concerning.
Yeah, it really is.
It suggests a momentum that ignored the facts in favor of a predetermined outcome.
You might be listening to this right now and thinking, why didn't JT just sue them immediately? Why didn't he just show the judge the audio tape?
Right, a lot of people wonder that.
But that is the terrifying reality of the system. You don't get to see the affidavit until after your door's already broken. You don't get the audio tapes in discovery until months or years later. The damage is already done.
Precisely. The Oki Doke was already executed. The narrative was set. The fire break was created. And the burden of proof was entirely shifted onto the person whose life had just been dismantled.
So let's pull all of this together. We are looking at the devastating impact of what we call the Oki Doke. We have a self-made man, a military veteran who slept in his car to build a career, who turned down guaranteed money to chase a dream, who had that entire career wiped out overnight.
It's tragic.
We have a sacred family day, a day meant to honor a father, permanently stained by the memory of assault rifles, blind backwards walking, and public humiliation. And we have a decades-long best friendship, a bond forged in the hardest days of Hollywood, completely destroyed.
And all of this destruction stems from an investigative document that failed to match the reality of its own audio files and digital records.
Yes.
It is a stark reminder that while we have explored the origins of this case today, the legal battles to untangle this web are still incredibly active. The fight to establish what truly happened, based on the paper trail rather than the public spin, is ongoing.
Which leaves us with a final provocative thought that I really want you to mull over as we wrap up this deep dive. We are looking at a case involving a global superstar, massive PR machinery, and highly paid elite attorneys. Right. And even in this high-profile arena where every move is scrutinized, an affidavit was pushed across a judge's desk containing information that was directly contradicted by the investigator's own files.
If the system can fail that spectacularly, if the constitutional safeguards against unreasonable search and seizure can be bypassed so easily when millions of dollars and a celebrity's reputation are on the line, the implications are chilling.
Exactly. If this can happen with the whole world watching, what does that mean for the integrity of the paperwork used against the average person, the person who doesn't have the resources to fight back?
The person who just goes to sleep on a normal Tuesday.
Right. The person who wakes up one morning to find their front door battered off its hinges, looking down the barrel of an assault rifle, completely defenseless against a narrative they didn't write. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the Oki Doke. Keep questioning the narratives you are handed, demand to see the paper trail, and remember the question that started it all: who played whom? Because sometimes that diagnostic X-ray machine we rely on for the truth is completely broken, and the muddy waters are exactly where the sleight of hand happens.